So we're going to start. We're going to start the meeting. Thanks everyone. Parks, Recreation, Resiliency meeting for September. It's been a while since it hasn't been a while. It just seems like it's been a while since we had a Zoom meeting, but here we are back again because our last meeting was in person. That being said, I'm going to have Michael introduce himself and go over some of the Zoom procedures that we follow for CB3 and this meeting.
Thank you, Trevor. It's been a while, so I'm a little rusty, so I'll try to remember to catch everything. So a couple of things for attendance purposes. We ask all non-community board members to sign in with your name and any organizational affiliation into the chat feature. To find the chat feature, it's usually located in the toolbar, which when the screen is not being shared, the toolbar is usually at the bottom of your screen. Sometimes when the screen is being shared, which it is now, the toolbar shows up at the top of your screen. Again, as always, the chat feature is only used for attendance purposes and for us to disseminate information to the participants in the meeting. We don't allow crosstalk in the chat. The chat only comes to myself and Trevor as the host and co-host of the meeting. So keep that in mind. If you're a presenter and you want us to send something to everybody in the meeting, just send it to us and then we will send it out to all of them. We ask that everybody stay muted during the meeting to alleviate any background noise and interruptions. Again, you can find the mute feature on the toolbar. It's the little microphone shaped thing. So you can mute yourself there. We do keep the option for everyone to unmute and mute themselves active during the meeting, but we can shut that off if people do not abide by the rules. And usually the way that Trevor runs the meetings as the chair is we will have a presentation from on the agenda item. Then Trevor will then go to the community board members first to ask any questions or comments on that presentation. And then after the community board members are done, Trevor will then open it up to public questions and comments. Keep in mind during the public questions and comments, you will be limited to 2 minutes. So we ask that you stay on topic and stay on the agenda item and not try to bring up something that wasn't presented or something that was voted on before. We do have a timer that we use, so you will see that on the screen when we are doing the public question and answer session. We also use the raise hand feature for questions and answers for both board members and public members. So again, if you open the participants tab in the toolbar, you will find the raise hand feature there. If you are calling in and you are not on a computer, raise hand feature is *9, and to mute and unmute yourself is *6. I believe that is it, other than just a warning. As you've heard, the meeting is being recorded to allow us to abide by open meeting laws and will be posted on our YouTube channel in subsequent days. That's it, Trevor.
Thank you, Michael. In general, we're going to follow the agenda, which is listed on your screen. If you cannot see the screen, we're going to start with the approval of previous month's minutes, Parks Managers update, an update on the ESCR, and then an update about the tree and bioswales, part of the ESCR project, and the Pier 36 vessel operations. In general, we're going to try and move this meeting along pretty quickly. I know we've had some very long meetings, so we're trying to be efficient here. That being said, the minutes were sent out. If there are any objections, please let me know. Are there any objections to the minutes? That being said, I'm going to take attendance, or I'm going to have Ryan take attendance for committee members. Ryan?
Trevor Holland.
Yes, we're here.
Kay Webster.
Yes.
Ryan Gillum, present. Yes. David Adams.
Yes.
Yaron Altman.
Yes.
Carlin Chan.
Yes.
Valentina Jones.
Yes.
Michael Marino.
Present.
Robin Chattel,
Yes.
Daniel Tano,
Yes.
Josephine Velez,
Yes.
Troy Velez. That's it.
All right, thank you. First up, we're going to have a Parks Manager update, but before we begin that, I want to take just a minute to explain our Parks Manager's update. Typically, this was at the end of the meeting, and we made a bit of a change. It's just to accommodate the Parks Manager since he has to come here every month. But we're really trying to keep this as an update. It's sort of gotten to a back and forth about particular issues, and it's become almost an agenda item when it's supposed to be an update. I think Susan is on. I see her walking, so I think she's going to go into detail about complaints about parks, just so we can keep it efficient and not spend a half or 45 minutes like we did one time on an update that generally takes about 6 or 7 minutes. That being said,
Sure.
Jamil,
Thanks.
you want to go first, or you want Jamil to go first?
Whatever you prefer.
No, go ahead. Go ahead. You might preface.
Okay. So Trevor and I had been talking about the complaint process, and it's, very natural that when Jamel's there, and he's an amazing parks manager and is, very responsive to complaints. But what happens is if there's a complaint that's just dealt with at the meeting, there's not the follow-up. So the office is actually mandated by city charter to deal with complaints. And the fortunate thing is we work with Jamel, email almost daily, talk often, and we do constant follow-ups. That's part of how we work with each other. So if complaints are particularly put in writing to the office, it also eliminates a lot of duplicate work, because I think Trevor's aware that sometimes you'll see constituents or board members working on an issue that the office is also working more directly on. And just let everyone know, once a month, we actually have an interagency meeting. And like just today, Jamel and I were on the phone about all the things that we're going to discuss at the meeting, because we wanted to get other agencies involved. So it's just much more efficient. If people will email, there's a complaint form, but also particularly for board members, if you want to email to Calvin or me, and that way we can get specifics with you and do the necessary follow-up to make sure it goes to the proper place.
All right, thank you. Jamil?
Hi, good evening, everyone. My district update is basically this. This weekend is our last pool day this Sunday. So the pool season, the 2021 pool season ends 9/12. We are receiving staffing from all the pools that are in District 3, which are Amfish, Dry Dock, and some from Levy, which is District 6, but we're getting some of their staff, which is going to help us because we are at an all-time low of staffing. So we're going to be utilizing that additional staff to help us with an evening schedule of doing garbage pickup, also a mobile route to go from park to park to park to do cleaning, because usually we get hit after my staff leaves. So we're going to utilize these additional staff to help us kind of maintain and really get ahead of some of the garbage we have that's scattered throughout the district. One of the other issues that we're having, our everyday issues, are still illegal dumping, drugs, and homeless encampments. Typically, the locations are Saturday, Allen Malls, Tompkins, and Coleman. Those are our most problematic areas within the district. Another thing that affected us also is that we average 8 to 12 call-outs a day. So it's difficult for us. What we try to do is we pull from one side of the sector to kind of help out another part of the sector that's short-staffed. So if there's issues, please feel free to reach out to me. I don't mind. I'm very honest about what we can and can't do. But the more I know, the more I can address this and address it as quickly as possible. My next part of my update is my JOP update for District 3. The following sites are JOPs in District 3. The first one is the Lower East Side Playground. Number 2 is McKinley Playground, which is under capital work right now. ABC Playground Wall Playground, which is located on Houston, Sidney Hillman Playground, Soul Lane Playground, Nation Strauss Playground, Playground 1, which is under construction also, and Henry M. Jackson. These are the basic schedules of how the JOPs operate. From Monday to Friday, while school's in session, they stay locked during the school day, and the properties remain locked until they are opened by the school at the end of the school day, and then secured at night by a lockup crew as per posted of hours of operation. We usually lock it between 10 and 1 o'clock. Saturday and Sunday, the parks are open between 6:30 and 7:15, and we close it with our lockup crew late in the evening. That's it.
All right, thank you, Jamil. Susan, did you want to speak before I go to committee members?
Yeah, so the reason I asked Jamil to give that update, I live next to a JOP and I see there are terrible problems. It is often empty and locked. I harass Jamil all the time. They're very responsive and come and unlock it immediately, but the process is not working properly. The school basically is not being cooperative in their after-school program. So one, I would like to know that I think it would be useful. I'm going to assume that if the play one I see has a problem all the time, that at least some of the others have a problem. And I think it would be useful, if it's possible, for us to know the times they're supposed to be unlocked every afternoon and who is responsible, because that is often a problem. So Jamil, is that information, and I want to say I appreciate all the work you've done on this. Is that information you think would be possible?
Yeah, so they're supposed to be open at 3 o'clock. What we've tried to do is, I'm not getting much help from a lot of the schools. A lot of the schools say they're going to open it up. They don't open up the sites. A lot of times I either get a phone call. Susan's one, she'll call me about McKinley, that will send a staff person over to open it. What I'm going to try to do this for a little bit differently. I'm just going to schedule a little later tour from someone to work to 4:30 to make sure these sites get open promptly so they can get used by the public. But typically, I would say 95% of the JOP sites, they don't cooperate with the agreement at all. You know, typically it's supposed to be maintained by both of us, but typically it's only maintained by parks. They'll, like, if it's snowing, they'll shovel to a point. When it gets to the playground, they stop.
Right. So I would like to I would like to suggest to the committee that we let Jamil see how this goes for a month or two. And if necessary, if it is not going well, that we do a resolution that would go to Department of Education regarding their responsibility to the community for jointly operated playgrounds.
Additionally, Susan, like, one of the things that we experienced this summer, a lot of the sites were saying they had permits for after-school programs, and they will keep the sites. We would open it and they would lock it, but they didn't have a permit at all.
We know that. We've certainly seen that, which is why. Which is why I want to suggest that the board do a resolution if this is not able to be cleared up in a month or two.
Okay, let's do this. Jamil, let us know how that goes for the next 60 or so days. And in one of your reports, you can give us some information about these particular sites. I know it's challenging. I have a couple around my area. I didn't even know they were supposed to open. I know they are, but none of them do. But let us know how this works out. Because I don't know, I want to make sure that what you're doing is also sustainable. And it doesn't cover the issue of snow removal and maintenance, if that is a shared responsibility. So let's see how it goes for 30 days, and we'll revisit this in 60.
I appreciate that. Okay.
Let's go. I'm going to go in this order: Robin, Kay, and Carla. So Robin first.
Hey, Jamil, hope you're doing well. I know it's, you got so much on your plate. Thank you so much. I mentioned this to you last time, I think, and I maybe should have put in an official call, but it was about 2 months ago when we were at the last meeting, not last month, the month before, but the water sprinkler at lane is still running 24 hours a day. It hasn't stopped running water since the day it was turned on. I mentioned that to you. It's incredibly wasteful that the water doesn't turn off. I was away for a few weeks. I came back, it's still running. It's a beautiful playground. The renovations are awesome. It's very well used, but this is water just running nonstop 24 hours a day, probably for the last 4 months. So
Robin,
you can just look into it again.
I'm just gonna stop you for what, that case in point. Did you ever report this to Susan or report it officially?
I mentioned it here, I guess, and to Jamil.
Yeah,
So-
but that's what we're trying.
And
to-
I brought it up, yeah, so.
No, I know, and I
No.
appreciate that. I'm just trying to make sure that we stay efficient because we spend a lot of time on this particular section and we never did. If we can get the complaints to CB3, just to take that burden off of Jamil answering here and to ensure follow-up. So Jamil, can you quickly go over that? And I guess Susan can take that as a complaint, but I really wanted to get out of that process
Sure.
because we could be here for hours.
So Robin, there was a work order generated. Our shops division did come out. They were working on because they're all, now they're sensors that kids hit and they come on, but they seem to be very, very problematic. What I'll do tomorrow morning, I'll reach out to our plumbers again that the issue is still ongoing. I'll make sure someone comes out tomorrow to take a look at it. We might have to take it totally offline if they can't fix it, so they can correct whatever issue is wrong with the sensor.
Well, that's great. Thank you so much. And thank you for putting the order in and listening to me a couple months ago. And yes, Trevor, I'll go that route going forward, but thanks a lot, Jamil.
Welcome.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Hi, Jamil. I'm not sure this actually does go to you, but and I'm not sure about this thought that we shouldn't bring things up at this meeting. I mean, you know, we just spent a lot of time on the issue Susan brought up. A lot of us are very familiar with the parks here and more familiar than anybody else other than Jamil. So I would love for us to think that through. But there was a huge shaking that happened, and I wanted to know, this isn't your purview, Jamil, but it did affect the BRC. It did, they don't have a foundation underneath. And so far, nobody has gotten back to anybody that I know of. So asking anybody here or any of the elected officials, you can either put it in, you can email me so I can get the word out to people that whatever it was that caused that shaking isn't going to happen again, because the floor and the ground actually shook. And I just want to say thank you for all the work in the park. SDR Park is really in trouble. We had another stabbing. We're going backwards. This is not going well for us. So thank you. And that's not anything to do with Jamel. The police can't deal with it. The social workers can't deal with it. The Alliance for Positive Change, there's too much going on and no answers. So that's my cheery report.
Jamil, before you respond, and just so you understand, is that Susan doesn't always attend these meetings, so she's not aware of particular complaints. And what we're evolving or devolving into is that we get the questions or the issues from committee members, and then the public wants to ask about every particular part. So we start off with a very short review, and then do we let the public comment? This is an agenda item. And then everyone wants to talk about a particular part, even if the issue has been raised. So it's very difficult to sort of manage how much time we spend on this without getting into a back and forth in a complaint. Plus, Jamil doesn't necessarily know what we're going to talk about, and he's put on the spot a lot of times for these complaints. And I'm just trying to avoid that. And I understand because the committee members are very well involved and they know a lot about their parks, but members of the community are now asking questions, and I'm just trying to avoid an hour on this particular.
Isn't that what we're here for, though?
No, we're not here to stay till midnight. Maybe someone else, but no, I don't think so.
We've been
I think
very long time for other parks and other issues. It is the nature of the beast. I think our parks are really struggling right now. And
I agree, but we have to find time to make sure we manage.
I don't think
We have-
Jamel has all the answers, and nobody expects him to. We all know how hard he works. So,
And we're also missing some other parks which are not in this update. I'm just saying that I'm trying to manage our time and manage our items. That's it. And it's, I don't know if it's the nature of the beast, because a lot of people think they should speak forever and not understanding that we do have time. That being said, Jamil, if you want to respond, then I'm going to go to Carlin and Susan and move on to the next topic.
I mean, this is the first I've heard about the shaking. If I could get the date, I could ask around and see if it, you know, I could also, I could have our shops division come take a look at the building to make sure there's any structural damage. I could do that also.
thanks, Jamil. We'll talk offline. Thanks.
Okay.
Carlin?
Okay, Jamil, this is not a maintenance issue. This applies to all parks. Do you know if the permit processing and also the league play has resumed? I see a lot of leagues are playing in the parks, and they've been telling the kids they have a permit. As far as I know, my permits were not okayed. Right? Do you know anything about this?
So permits are still ongoing. So one of the issues we are having this summer that we've been trying to address with PEP is really stop some of the unpermitted play. We have it with baseball, we have it with soccer, we have it with basketball. There's been a lot of unpermitted activity. There was an email that went out today saying, telling us to be a little bit more visual at our locations and making sure stuff that people inquire to permitted or that seems like permitted programs to show their permit so we can check to see they're valid. I know in District 3, we've had issues at Dry Dock, we've had issues at Tompkins, we've had issues at Sarah D, and even in the fields of East River, a lot of unpermitted stuff has been going on. I've been trying to connect with PEP and really do a good job of really going out and inquiring and asking questions and actually seeing permits so we can address the problems when they arise.
Okay, who can I call when someone says they have a permit for enforcement?
You could call Central Communications. I can give you the phone number. They will reach out to either PEP or myself about the location. If it's either early or late, I can send a supervisor or a staff person to inquire about a permit, or they can send PEP.
Okay, can you
If
type
have a pen,
that
I can give you
into
the number.
you can type it into the chat so we can all have it.
He's on the phone.
Okay.
Oh,
I'm on the
okay.
phone.
What is the number?
It's 646 613 1200.
We're looking for PEP.
It's a 24-hour PEP line. It deals with anything. So typically, there's an issue, there's any kind of problem, they will page whoever's associated with that district or that sector to have someone come out and check.
Okay, thank you much. You have a good evening.
You're welcome. You too.
Susan? Did you read? Okay.
I'll deal with my issue offline.
Okay, and just before we close out this, is that we're asking the community to do, report things to the board or report things to park. And I just want to make sure we're doing that. I know myself with certain parks, I don't necessarily report them, but then when we're asked whether we file the complaint, the answer is no. So I'm only asking our committee members to do what we expect of the public, and that is to make sure that the complaint reaches the appropriate offices. All right, thank you, Jamil. Just for next month, Jamil, can you make sure that you have the?
I'll give you. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay, I'll do that and also give you updated.
Sure.
I'll do that and also give you an update of the progress of JOPs and making sure they lock up their properties and open them up on time.
All right, thank you. Next, and Michael, who's next on the? Has Desiree, you need screen sharing, correct?
Yeah, she's all set up. Desiree's all set up, ready to go.
Okay, so next is our ESC update. Park members, please be aware that this is an update, and we're going to try and keep this as an update moving forward. We haven't really managed to keep it as an update, but we'll try this one. Go ahead.
Thanks, Trevor. So, Michael, I actually lost internet connection for a couple of minutes, so I think you might have to re-enable my sharing because I got completely cut out of the meeting and had to re-sign in. So, apologies.
You're all set now.
Perfect, thank you.
Yep.
I hope I don't lose internet connection again. So let's cross our fingers with that. Okay, so good evening, everyone. Again, I'm Desiree Gazzo from HNTB Lero, Community Engagement Team. I'm joined here today with our DDC team, as well as some others from our HNTB Lero team to present the construction update for the East Side Coastal Resiliency Project. Everyone can see my screen. Please let me know if anything happens. Okay. All right. So highlights. We did try and keep the presentation short for tonight. So we have a quick overview of contracts. We have some what we've heard items, partially from items we've heard from the last time we were all in person, I guess 2 months ago, that we wanted to follow up on. And then 1 or 2 items that we've heard again outside of the meeting, and then just an update on the call for art. So again, we have our kind of map of the area. For the overview of contracts, for project area 1, I think as many of you know, the notice to proceed was issued to the contractor on August 16th. They are working on some non-invasive work before they actually start construction work as the phasing plan is being finalized. So they were doing some surveying work and photographing of existing conditions, etc. No community impacts. Again, non-invasive field work. East River Park will be open through summer of 2021, and the Parks Department is permitting the ball fields for the full season through November. We also just recently found out that they will be the amphitheater and the barbecue areas, those will be available as well through November. We're also onboarding our first community construction liaison for project area 1. So we're hoping to introduce her to the community in the next couple of weeks. So we're very excited about that. And again, with the phasing, as soon as that is approved, we will provide that update to the community. For project area 2, we are still in construction on the kind of phase 1 of the project, and that includes Asser Levy Playground, Stuyvesant Cove Park, the north part of Solar One we've been working on, and as of tomorrow, we will close the area of Stuyvesant Cove Park just north of 20th Street. So right now, or so up until tomorrow, the area kind of north of 20th Street until you get to kind of the Solar One area was open and accessible. It was kind of a dead end, but now the work is continuing in Sty Cove Park, moving south. So that area, you still will be able to access the park at 20th Street, but the area north will be closed. For parallel conveyance, procurement is ongoing. And I have the next 2 slides, which Trevor, as you requested, gives a little bit more background on parallel conveyance. So this is a parallel conveyance slide, which ironically enough, we actually presented last September, exactly a year ago. So it is a good time for a refresher. So parallel conveyance optimizes the existing drainage infrastructure and stormwater system. The parallel conveyance work consists of sewer upgrades. There will be 2 interceptor gates, 2 buildings, which require several deep kind of manhole excavations. And then the impacts to the community would potentially be street and sidewalk closures, some detours, and potential water main shutoffs, all which will be coordinated just like the other DDC kind of typical stormwater and sewer projects that DDC typically runs. In the image that we have here, so there's kind of the blue area. If you could see my mouse there. So the blue area, that's inland of the wall. So here's the wall, rendering of the wall here. So the the blue area inland, that's the parallel conveyance area. So the sewer upgrades there will help protect the community from floods that result from heavy rainfall during the storm events. And then the flood wall and kind of, other improvements for PA1 and PA2 on the, I guess, the east side of the wall. That flood protection system, that is to protect the community from coastal and tidal flooding kind of in saltwater. So they work hand in hand to create that full kind of flood protection. So I hope that helps explain the parallel conveyance project a little bit better. And then in the next slide here, these are the locations for the parallel conveyance. So it does span project area 1 and project area 2 within the streets, within the local streets. And then the red is kind of the sidewalk and street work. And then the yellow is the tide gate chambers and buildings. So there are two, one in the southern portion and then one in the northern portion at East 20th Street. And those are the general locations, again, subject to change, of course. But right now, this is where the locations are. And we could take any other questions during the question period. So for what we've heard, there were a few questions at the last meeting on some construction items. Again, the contractor has really just joined the group now. They're still going through so much of the preliminary work and discussions, and again, phasing. So many of the kind of details that are being asked of us in these meetings, we again do not have the answers to. So we can give you kind of general responses now, and we will provide more information as we receive the information. So one of the questions was, how long will it take for the fill to settle before you can build on it? So the consolidation settlement is continuously monitored. There isn't a specific time. There isn't a specific number of months. It depends on the area. It depends on the depth, etc. So there are requirements in the specifications, and the settlement is monitored by the team. And then when it reaches the specification numbers, then that is, when then they can move on to the next step, which is, building on top of the area. So I know there have been a lot of questions with that. We may be able to provide more information, but as of right now, it does vary per area, and it is per the specifications. I know there have been several questions about how recreational facilities adjacent to large fill areas will be handled. Again, the specific details, we don't have specific details. However, it is the contractor's responsibility to perform the work in a safe manner, inclusive of public safety. So the contractor will assure that the public is safe while they are working. And again, as the contractor comes on board and as we move along, we will be able to provide more details, and especially as the phasing plan moves forward. The other question was bicycle and pedestrian access, and we did have a point at the last meeting, but again, similar to project area 2, the local detours for bicycles and pedestrians will be established with DOT and the contractor, again, once we know more about the phasing. For the budget, we do have a number from July, and we are requesting an updated number. So we didn't have that for tonight's meeting. So Trevor, if that's okay, as soon as we get that number, we could certainly provide it to you and you could share. And then we could also provide, if anyone wants to submit the question, I don't remember exactly who the question came from, but if you'd like to submit it in the inquiry tool, we could certainly respond there as well as soon as we get that update. But as of now, we only have July's number, and we wanted to provide you with something that was more recent. So a few other what we've heard questions. On the environmental reporting, I know there were some concerns about that at the last meeting. So we are very close to releasing an air quality fact sheet. It's kind of a double-sided one page double-sided fact sheet with some little graphics and text to kind of help explain the air quality monitoring process. So as soon as we are finished with that, we will send that out. We're hoping in the next week or so. I don't want to jinx it, but I think we are close to releasing it. We are also revising the air quality data kind of summary. It was asked to have kind of an executive summary for the quarterly monitoring reports. So we're working on that as well for the next quarterly report. There are continued questions, I know, especially from you, Trevor, about the amphitheater. So the city is still working on registering those funds for the design team, and we do not have an update with that. For the compost yard, the temporary location per DSNY, the Brooklyn location is still moving forward. Again, we don't have a specific update on that. And then for the permanent location in East River Park, per the Parks Department, that is still ongoing as well. And I don't know if everyone here is aware, but the CAG group had issued a kind of a formal letter to parks with quite a few questions related to parks. And one of them was the compost facility and its place in East River Park. So I did provide the link here. I could provide it in the chat also. But there is kind of an extensive detailed response. And I think it would just be better if you just go there and kind of see that. And then you could submit any other follow-up questions to Parks on that or to us, and we could relay them to Parks. But that is progressing forward. And then there was the question about the permanent art in the new Esker Parks. We do have the call for art, which the next slide will cover, which is for the temporary construction fencing mesh. But for permanent art, there was not a % for arts requirement in the Esker project. I am looking into kind of more kind of why that was so, and I didn't get to the bottom of that yet. So if that question comes up, I don't exactly have the answer, but we're working on getting an answer for that. But Parks encourages artwork in the New York City parks for several different reasons, but they prefer the temporary public outdoor art program that also gives many artists an opportunity to provide art in parks, because it's kind of cyclical and different artists can showcase their work. So there is quite a bit of information on the New York City Parks website on that program, and Parks recommended that folks that were interested in art in the parks visit that website there. So again, this presentation will be posted to the Esker website by tomorrow, or I could copy and paste these into the chat if you'd like. The last slide for tonight is the decorative mesh call for art. So this is just a reminder, the submission deadline is September 30th, so it is approaching. There are monetary awards. It's $300 for students and $1,000 for local artists. Again, a local artist is essentially anyone that's a New York City resident that's not a student. And we've received some really beautiful submissions from quite a few students. It's really exciting. We are really excited about the program and can't wait to have the students' work up in hopefully before the end of the year. So it's really nice, and we've been touched by the submissions that we've received so far. So again, we encourage everyone to spread the word and spread the news to your networks and have your families and friends apply for the call for art. There are in-person drop-off locations at 2 local libraries. All the information is on the website, and then you could submit virtually through the website as well. And that is our presentation for this evening.
All right. As Michael stated at the beginning of the meeting, we're going to go committee members first.
I do not see any hands up from anybody other than one member of the public.
No committee.
Oh, now I see Robin. Robin has a hand up.
Robin, we're going to ask
Hi.
mine first before we go.
Sure, go ahead, Trevor.
The phasing schedule, when do you think that will be ready?
We've been receiving that question a lot, and I think Jeff from DDC is on the call. Jeff, I don't know if you have an update on that. I think we're still kind of awaiting when the phasing plan will be approved.
Yeah, I mean, can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We hope to have something within the next few weeks, and of course, we will come back to Parks Committee and provide an update as soon as it's available. As Desiree mentioned, the contractor is just officially on board, and so we're working with them to meet the commitments that we previously described to the community.
Robin next.
Yeah, that was my question again. When are things going to start? You know, and in your presentation, you said the park will be open through the summer. Well, that's almost over, but that ball fields will be active. So yes, that's what we're waiting for. We're waiting for that, you know, to know when that day will come when the shovel hits the ground and starts closing parts of our park. Thanks.
Mhm.
Any more committee questions? Robin?
Dave, is that you with your hand up, the last name Adams?
That's me.
Okay. Go ahead, Dave.
I just want to, when you give the budget information, just saying how much you spent is kind of, doesn't mean anything. Is there any way to put it into phrase of what you expect to be spent in that period of time, or what, you know, what you're planning with spending, or so we get a concept of what we're understanding when you say that much money was spent?
I'm not sure I exactly understand what we're spending. Oh, in each phase, what we're anticipating spending, like in a quarter or in a year, and what we've actually spent. Like, is that what you're asking? Sorry, just.
I'm talking. Excuse me. I'm talking about on the project that you're spending the money on. I don't know. I'm not talking about the overall thing. That's how the expenses are incurred. But if you expect to spend on the projects you're working on this much money, and and you spent on target, over target, some
Sure.
type of, so we understand what we mean when you say you're spending that much money.
Sure, we can try to provide a little bit more besides just a number. I could take that request back.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Keep in mind,
I think
David,
Desiree, I'm sorry. I think you were responding to a specific question that you received. How much has been spent to
Right.
date?
well,
That's why it was phrased that way.
Right. And just to understand that a lot of the questions are not only coming through this meeting, but from particular individuals. So they're answering a particular question from a person. So that's why that question is phrased that way. Someone's asked that particular question. But I understand David's point about maybe making a little more or correlating it to what you expect to spend on engineering, what you expect to spend on this. So that's one more.
Trevor, are you still using a headset? Because we can barely hear you.
Yeah, it's a new Zoom update. So it's working as well. So, can you hear me now?
Yeah, that's a little better.
Sorry.
That's all right.
What you just said, because I wasn't sure what you said.
Well, to your point, maybe they can update those numbers to add a little more information and perspective on how much is being spent. But understanding that a lot of the questions that are being asked come from a lot of different places, so they're responding to a particular question. So someone asked that particular question, like how much did you spend so far?
Yeah, and I think that was actually the last question at the last CB3 meeting.
Carlin.
I don't need to ask. I just went up on that art submission website. I got my answer there. Thank you.
And Carlin, I think it's a great opportunity for students and artists in the area because they're really trying to keep this local. So if we can spread the word.
Yeah, I just got my nonprofit approved for the mural project, so I wanted to see if an organization can submit artwork or actually artists in the local area. Yeah, so I got my answer, and I'll be encouraging people to submit. Thank you.
Yeah, it's geared toward a specific person. The award will be presented to a specific person. So if it's a group of people, there would only be one kind of award. So it's one piece of art per person.
Thank you. I'll just have to submit it individually.
Yes, great.
Michael, I see one question from.
There's one member of the public whose hand went up before the presentation was even over.
Okay, Billy.
Yes, that's me. Hi. Thank you for your presentation and answering the questions from the last meeting, but I have a few questions, of course, as usual. So when are they starting to actually cut down the trees, and are they going to cut them down all at once, or is that going to be phased over time? When are we losing all the trees? And also in light of all the new weather events and the huge speeded up sea level rise and major rain events, which we knew were coming, and they're now here, as everybody has said, and the design within rebuild by design, the executive, everybody saying, oh, we're going to take care of drainage. Well, why isn't that being, like, nothing has been reviewed. This plan is already old. It's probably good for now 20 years for the next biggest storm, but drainage should be first and foremost throughout the city, and it's still being put on a back burner. And people have died, and now I'm not sure, but the presentation was so quick on the most important part, which isn't even contracted yet, for the drainage systems and Newton Creek and backing up, and we're all going to be at sewer backups. It seems like you're doing the minimum amount, and I'm not sure if interceptor gates are holding water back, and if during a storm, if they're going to, the pipes that go to Newton Creek, all the storm drains are going to get plugged up until after the storm. Like, where is all this water that's going to be slowed down? It's all still going to back up. And really? I think, yes, okay, I still have 2 minutes. I'm not done yet, but I don't understand why the plan hasn't been reviewed. And how many years is this plan? It's obsolete compared to the new, weather projections of what is happening in the rise in sea level. And also, it's pretty scary if this contractor who's not qualified is still the one who's going to be doing the work, a totally inexperienced, unqualified contractor. And if our safety depends on them and this project timeline depends on that, that's also very scary. But I would like to hear much more about the drainage, and if there's pump stations, where are they located? And I'm not sure what the interceptor gates were, or where those flood walls were that you were showing. It was really just chopped up in a really tiny, pretty graphic. Thank you.
Well, Desiree, before you answer that, Billy, I'm sorry, I didn't see the timer. It was behind my screen.
That's okay.
So I apologize for that. And I'm going to let Desiree answer that and then go into why we do updates at this point.
Sure. So, okay. So to answer the first question, the park will be closed in phases, as was requested by the community. We will have a phased approach to park closures. At least 42% of the park will be closed in each phase, and the phasing plan is being again reviewed and approved right now. As Jeff said, we're hoping to have it in the next couple of weeks. So once that is approved, then we will have more information on kind of which portions of the park will be closed down for construction first and second and third, etc. So we will be able to provide you that, again, as soon as it is available. For the second portion of the question, well, I guess we'll go back to the parallel conveyance. Trevor, if you would like us to prepare a more detailed presentation on parallel conveyance, we could certainly come back with more information. We did just give a brief overview of the parallel conveyance. if CB3 wants, a more detailed presentation, we could certainly take that back to the team and then prepare a more focused presentation on parallel conveyance. And that's perfectly fine.
But that's not even part of the contract yet to do the drainage? Did you say it was a separate, it's not contracted yet?
Sure.
And why
So
is that happening first? Why isn't that phase now? You know, I mean, like, I don't understand why it's like nothing has been updated on this plan for years.
Right. So there was a design process, and the design process is over, and now we're in construction. So the construction is for the design that was reviewed and approved by the city. The contractors for both PA1 and PA2 were selected based on their experience and capabilities.
No, they weren't. That's not true. Sorry.
Right, Billy,
That's
let's
totally not. Yeah, but that's not true. It's not true.
I know.
I'd like, if I may, Trevor, I'm not sure where that information came from. Again, the contractor for PA1 has gone through the exact same process every other contractor in New York City goes through on every other construction project that New York City bids out. So I'm not, again, it's not my job to defend them, but I can assure you that every proper step was followed. There was a court case about that, and that appeal has been dismissed as of right now. So again, there seems to be a misconception that all procedures weren't followed, and that is not true here. So I just wanted to make that point.
Let me do this because I know we've had at least 2, maybe 3 extensive meetings on the parallel conveyance, including one last year, which Desiree mentioned. Can you drop the link for, I don't know if there's the presentations available from last year?
We'll have to go back, and the presentation from last year on parallel conveyance at this time last year really just, again, kind of skimmed the surface of parallel conveyance, but I can go back and check where a more thorough presentation of parallel conveyance,
Sure.
Was presented, and then I could provide you that link, Trevor, and then
Right.
you could
Yeah.
Mhm.
I understand the urgency, and also with this rain event, it's on people's mind, but we discussed this in quite detail at the community board level. This is not new, and that's why I asked for a refresher update, but we're keeping this as an update. We can discuss with the committee and the board whether we want to make this a full agenda item. It might be timely, but we need to think about whether it deserves another. Robin?
Yeah, I just also in this conversation, what would be really helpful, I don't know if this has been brought up, and I said in the CAG, but how exactly these things are getting done. In other words, all the trees are being removed, but how is it, can we get a picture of what that might look like? How is it happening? And I'm not sure in any of these conversations if someone's already spoken about what to do with the trees and the wood and all that, but like, are they just going to be ripped up and thrown away? Are they going to, we're going to hear buzzsaws? Like, you know what I mean? It would just be helpful to get a picture for the community of what that's going to look like and sound like.
Sure. And the trees, there is kind of a tree reuse program. So the Parks Department has specifications within the contract for certain tree use. And again, they've been tagging. I think there have been questions about what are the tags that are on some of the trees in East River Park, and they have kind of a reuse program. So I think they can provide a little bit more information on what that program is like. And then there's always, again, for mulching, that is one of the other reuses for the trees. So I think there isn't, it's not, Robin, like you said, right, we're just going to take them all down and then just discard. There are several different uses that the trees will be reused for. I know in Project Area 2, Solar One is actually reusing some of the oak trees that are in PA2 for shiitake mushroom logs, and they are providing them to community gardens within the area, and they're also doing plant giveaways, etc. So it is being considered other reuses for the trees.
All right, thanks, Trevor. I think this has come up in previous meetings to try to get the Parks Department in on these meetings as well. We're going over this, right, to try to have everybody in the same room at the same time. That would be certainly helpful. I know others have voice that same ask.
For the issue of, or just in general, or for,
Well, yeah, I think when we're talking about the construction of the park and there's questions that come up about the park usage and it's the Parks Department's uh, 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 wheelhouse and they're not here, then we have a lot of unanswered questions or we don't
Desiree,
get
is there someone-
updates.
Desiree, is there someone from Parks here?
I don't think Haley's there. Haley, can you speak to that?
I'm here, yes. I do have an update on the wood reuse program as part of my updates tonight.
Oh, great.
So Robin, it will be on the next agenda item. Haley is patiently waiting.
Sorry, Haley, you were hiding. I apologize. Thank you.
So,
Thanks, Haley.
thank you, Desiree, for that update. You have a couple of questions that are still answered, but hopefully by the next meeting. Or if you hear anything about the construction of the phasing before then, please let us know so we can get that out. And we'll talk about whether we want to do a full-blown parallel conveyance as an agenda item. But thank you very much.
You're welcome. Thank you. Thanks, everyone.
Up next, I believe, is the tree and bioswales update. Right on cue. So, Haley, I don't think you need to share your screen. You're going to give us an update, though.
No, I do have a couple of updates. So good evening, everyone. If you don't know me, I'm Haley Hicks. I'm with NYC Parks Forestry. Tonight I have 3 updates. I'm going to update you on the tree planting projections for fall and next spring, the bioswales, and then also, as I mentioned, a brief update on the wood salvage efforts in East River Park. So for tree planting updates, this fall we are planning to plant 135 trees in Community Board 3. And next spring, we're looking at 400 trees in Community Board 3. So the goal is by the end of next spring planting that we will have planted about 1,200 trees so far in the community. And I want to add that we have a greening task force meeting on October 4th, where I'll be able to provide some more specific details about those plantings, including a map of the sites and the species breakdown. And that's where I can also answer all of your tree-related questions. Regarding the rain gardens and bioswales, we have identified a list of preliminary sites in Community Board 3 for potential bioswale installation. The procurement process for that begins this fall for a contract that will include the geotechnical borings, percolation tests, a survey of the sites, and then eventually bioswale construction. We will provide another update once the contract is in place and once we have the list of potential sites that is fully narrowed down after those initial hydrology tests are done. So I will keep you updated on the process of that. And lastly, for the wood salvage in East River Park, so our parks foresters have been conducting a survey over the last 3 weeks now, I believe, surveying the trees, looking for opportunities where we can repurpose as many trees as possible. They're surveying the entire extent of East River Park. And basically what they're looking for, to give you some background, they're surveying trees based on size, species, condition, and trunk shape. So we're looking for trees that are large in size, that are don't have too much decay, and generally have like a straight trunk. Those are the trees that we're targeting for wood salvage. And the trees that we have identified to date have a small quarter-sized tag on them high up on the trunk. So if you see those tags affixed to the trunk, that's what that is indicating, is that we will try to reuse them or repurpose the wood. So that survey is ongoing, and we actually expect it to conclude at the end of this month. So I know that's kind of covered a lot. I'm happy to answer questions here And also additionally, as I mentioned at our greening task force meeting on October 4th.
Thank you, Haley. I have a couple of quick questions, and I know we had asked about this at a previous meeting, and I'm not sure if Parks has the manpower, but or people power. The list that of places where you can't plant trees, where you're able to generate that where people have requested, but you can't plant it because we're seeing multiple requests for particular areas, and people may not understand that you can't plant in a particular area because of what's underneath or other conditions or factors.
Yes, we had a meeting with our GIS department to develop a tool. We currently have the means of entering in do not plant zones. Our challenge right now is finding an interface that the public can easily use and look up addresses. So that's still something that we're working on getting established.
Thanks. And my last question, when do you anticipate construction of the rain gardens and bioswales? I know there's a process, but we're talking months or half a year or a year?
For construction, we're talking a couple of years. So at this point, assuming that the procurement process takes some time, which it usually does, we're a couple years out from the actual installation, like construction of the bioswales. Outside of that, I unfortunately can't give a more specific timeline until that contract is procured, but I will have a better idea once we procure it.
No, that's fine. I was just trying to get some framework.
Yeah.
That's helpful. All right, I see 3 hands, but let's go to Val first.
Yeah, I have a simple question. You said the meeting on October 4th is a task force. What meeting is this and how do we get information? Because you're saying the public can come and ask questions.
Sure, so it's a community grading group, and we discuss mainly tree planting and community boards 3 and 6 in relation to ESCR efforts. And Trevor, would you be able to share that information?
Sure. There was just like other groups, there was a greening task force established for the planting of these trees. So there are members from the committee on this particular task force. I don't have it right now, but I can share it with the committee after the meeting, the information for this meeting. I think we've had 3 meetings, Haley, I'm not sure, or 2?
I think we've had 4 to date.
4? Okay.
Total, yeah.
Okay, so you'll have the information by the full board meeting so that, because you're saying the public can come and ask a question at that time. So because right now the public has either this meeting or the meeting you're talking about, because the CAG meeting, the public cannot ask questions. So I think that the public would like to know. So at the full board meeting, that's fine. Just the information so that people can join. Thanks.
Trevor, I have the information if you want me to post it.
Sure. Just keep in mind that it is a grading task force meeting like other meetings, but go ahead and post that, Michael.
But wait a minute, you're going in and out, Trevor. What are you saying?
It's a task force meeting. It is open to the public, but it is a task force meeting, meaning that there are members of a particular task force.
But she said the public can ask questions.
Correct.
Okay, that's all. I think the public just wants to ask questions. Okay, sounds good.
Yeah,
we
Michael,
do. You're gonna put it in the chat, blah, blah.
It's already in there.
Thank you, Michael. Appreciate you posting that. And yes, please do feel free to join. We typically reserve about an hour. We do a brief presentation and the majority of it is open questions and conversation. So we welcome that.
Josie.
I think Val had asked my question, but Haley, hi, I've been waiting also for the task force to have meetings, and you just mentioned with Trevor that you had 4 meetings so far. I never got an email to any of them. So I've been waiting and never got anything. So am I on your distribution list? Or
I thought that you were on my distribution list, but I'm making a note.
Or else I would have been there. So
But can I interject, Josie? I'm sorry. because I'm on the task force as well, we haven't met in probably 8 months. So I think the meetings that Haley are talking about are meetings that happened long before you asked to be on the task force.
Okay, okay. All right, so, Michael, can you just include me on the emails? I would like that, okay? Thank you.
Josie, the information for the meeting is in the chat.
I don't know how to
and-
copy it from the chat. That's the problem. If you would just email me, I would really appreciate it.
Josie, if you're not already on my distribution list, I'm adding you to it now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much.
Of course.
Okay.
Lisa Kaplan, as a board member.
Yeah, thanks very much. Maybe I'm the only person who didn't understand this. I haven't been to all the meetings, but when you said, Haley, about marking several trees after the survey that can be reused, could you just explain what that means? Does that mean the trees would be saved, or does it mean that the wood would be reused? And if the trees could be saved, can any of them be replanted in East River Park?
Yes, good question. Let me clarify that. So for the survey that I'm talking about, the trees will be removed and we're planning to reuse the wood, the timber from those trees for other purposes like picnics, tables, benches, and things that will go back into the park. There are a handful of trees that are smaller, 3-inch to like 6-inch in caliper that I believe are being transplanted, but typically larger trees can't be transplanted as easily.
So do you have any information about how many trees are going to be saved and reused in East River Park?
Unless it's a handful. There aren't many trees that are small enough in size and that are also healthy enough to be transplanted and survive after being transplanted. I don't know the number off of the top of my head, but I believe it's under 20 trees that are small enough.
I see. Okay, thank you for the information.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you, Haley. And if you have any more questions about trees and the process that she's talking about, you can attend the meeting that Michael dropped the link in. Sorry,
Sorry, I just had to mute somebody that was on.
okay. And you could, Michael dropped it in chat, you can attend that meeting. But thank you, Haley, for the information and that update. Thanks.
Thank you. Good evening.
Next up is at Pier 36, the vessel update. There's a lot of traffic going on out of that particular vessel, out of that particular port. So I believe there's someone here from Dock NYC. You need to unmute yourself.
I do not see anybody.
It
There we
is
go.
there.
I'm here, sorry. So can you see me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Sure, we can both.
Great, good evening. Thank you for giving me the opportunity to come speak with you again. Trevor, that was probably a good lead-in. There's a lot of activity there this summer. I'll start with the coordination with the Van Gogh, which I thought went very well. We were able to continue our operation, restrict theirs as well. They did assume the opening and closing of the Esplanade on a regular basis. I know they're gone now, so I haven't heard anything. We've been opening and closing the Esplanade, so I don't know if it's there's been any problems with that, but I haven't heard anything. Given the amount of people using the Esplanade, not only from our tour operations, but with the exhibit, we've added a lot of trash containers. We stepped up our porter service on the Esplanade itself. And you're right, there is a lot of activity, but it's predominantly tour operation. There's 3 operators going out of there on a regular basis. The most recent addition was Clipper City. You may see that. That's actually a sail operation, and that's a historic vessel. They also have a second vessel called the Shearwater, which is probably too small for them to bring in there. That operation is run by a gentleman by the name of Tom Burton. Tom was actually a member of the, I think it's CB1, down in around South Street Seaport. And Tom asked me to convey to this committee that, you know, he's more than happy to take people out. If he can coordinate with the community sales for children or particular groups, he's more than happy to do that. So I don't know how we would coordinate that, Trevor, but if you could point me in the right direction, I'll connect Tom with them to do that. The nighttime activity has been limited. I think that's in part just the industry as a whole. There is some activity going out there, but I haven't heard any complaints. I think, you know, we've worked with the precinct over the years to reduce the negative impact as much as we can, and I think we're successful in doing that. We do expect American Cruise Lines to come back in late September through October. If you're not familiar with them, they are kind of an overnight cruise operation. They come in, they load, and then they go away, and they come back a week later with their guests. They've been coming in and out for several years, and we've never really had any problems with them or any complaints. I don't see anything in the future that would come as a surprise. You know, we have tried to get some big historic vessels to come and go dockside. Believe it or not, we tried to get a very large historic vessel out of Sweden, but the masts were so high they actually couldn't get under the bridge. So we do have some limitations there. But we're moving along, I think, at a good pace, but I don't think there's been a lot of disruptions. I haven't heard much, and I normally do right away. So I'm happy to take any questions, and if there's been some problems, address them as quickly as I can.
Sure, and I'm going to start since there are a couple of issues that continue to persist, and one of them has to do with, and I know you don't necessarily hear this because it doesn't necessarily get to your office, but we had a conversation, or the board had a conversation with EDC yesterday about opening and closing that Esplanade, and we took a tour out there a couple of days ago, and the gate was indeed locked at 12:30 or 1 p.m. and it's not open and closing at the stated hours. It was agreed with EDC, and EDC said that 9 a.m. and 7 p.m. and I can assure you that those hours are not being followed.
Give me the hours. We'll make sure it's open. You know, the exhibit had been handling that. I didn't realize when they left that they dropped the opening and closing because they are anticipating coming back. So I'll make sure it's taken care of.
Right, and with the pier itself, the gates that lead, like if I don't know what the proper term is, but if you're getting on board one of your vessels, there's a gate that opens and closes to allow for the gangway to the ship. They were supposed to be locked so that people don't use it to easily access the water. And we had a lot of people in the water last year and the year before because those gates were unlocked. So you can just open them up and have access to the water. If those dock hands can be diligent about that, I know that it's a process to lock and unlock, but sometimes they're locked even at night, unlocked at night, and it can be very dangerous, especially at night when people have had a little bit to drink.
There should be a pattern on every one of them. So.
Right. There are several ships sailing out of there, and they advertise, you know, there are some party boats and even the tour boats. And we're wondering what the requirements are for these party boats and tour boats. If we go to a restaurant or open entertainment center, I believe the city requires you to be vaccinated. But it doesn't appear that that restriction extends to the vessels. So there's one that's leaving at 12:30 midnight or left at 12:30 midnight, and nothing was required to get on the boat. No COVID tests, no vaccination, no masks. And I understand that once they get out on the water, they have different routes, but they are loading from a land point. So what are you doing, and what are the requirements for these vessels that are leaving out of our community?
I think the vaccination requirements go into effect on Sunday.
Okay.
And the operators have all been asked to submit a protocol for checking for the vaccination. We've circulated the same information that the restaurants have. They're subject to the same rules as the restaurants. Unless you're just pure transport, such as a citywide ferry or New York Waterway ferry, in which case they don't check for vaccinations, but they're required to wear a mask on board. So the boats, for the most part, are subject to the same rules as the restaurants. So they should have a protocol for checking, but a lot of the social distancing protocol and the masks has been dropped in open spaces. So when they're trying to board, it's not necessarily a requirement, but it's just a good practice. And we can, remind them of that. But the vaccination card verification starts on Sunday.
Yeah, that was my main question.
Monday,
That was my main question. The other issue is, and I don't know what the requirements are. I know that the 7th precinct in previous years had done a pretty good job of preventing cars from coming on that deck. We've noticed a lot of vehicles loading, unloading, and sometimes people are using that deck, which I don't know if the weight requirement allows that, but we're seeing a lot of that. And I don't know which particular boat. I do have Vessel Finder, but I can't pull that thing out every time I see a boat.
Are they with the vessels, or are they just general public?
Yes. General dealing with the vessels, it might be a DJ. So they are allowed to use that deck to, because that wasn't the case before. There was a yacht out. There was a yacht there last year or a couple years ago, which they tried to use as a private driveway, and the 7th precinct stopped that. So I'm wondering, what are the requirements or the restrictions for using that particular?
They should be stopping at the north end of the Esplanade in the driveway and basically hauling anything down, unless it's a very quick pick up and drop off of a piece of equipment. I mean, the pier can handle the load, but they should be there on a regular basis. So that's the first I'm hearing of this. So I'll look into it, and I'll remind the operators that the vehicles are supposed to be on the north end in the driveway itself.
Correct. All right. So I'll make sure if you can inform those vessel operators of that. That tall ship or the historic ship, which we're going to have to talk with the community board about the offer from Tom. But one of the things that they're doing is they have signs, and a lot of the boat operators have signs placed throughout the park, meaning the Esplanade and Pier 35, about how to get to the pier, because sometimes it can be confusing. But it's still on park property, and we're seeing a lot of traffic.
They should be the north end now and not the south end at all.
Oh, they're on the south end, lots of signs. In fact, if you look on the website for the historic vessel, they do not advertise themselves as being at Pier 36. They advertise themselves at Pier 35, just because they typically dock closer to Pier 35.
The southern post split.
Right. And that post is fine, but there obviously needs to be another discussion offline about the traffic that's going in that particular direction.
Would you, is your preference that they don't enter in the south, or is it a sign?
No, they can enter to the south. It's just that when you load up the park with all types of signs, it stops being a park and starts being a sidewalk or a way to get there. I don't know if you've been involved in the conversations about the mural that we're trying to get on the back of Pier 36.
I have not.
So we're going to invite you to that. And I know you haven't, so you don't know much, but we'd like you to involve you and those vessel operators in a discussion about getting art on the back of that wall and placing, and perhaps doing a larger project to sort of.
I think right.
If we can get art to help change the atmosphere, that would be great. And my last question, I know there's been some complaints or issues. I know there's been some complaints about party boats and noise. I think I've only seen it once, one of the operators where they had a full-fledged disco going on, but I really haven't seen it. The main violator tends to be the open air Circle Cruise Lines, which leaves out of the west side of Manhattan.
Right.
And it's going to be difficult. I mean, we can discuss our particular pier, but discussing a pier that's on 34th or 42nd Street is a little difficult unless you operate traffic out of that pier.
No, I don't, but I can speak to them about the problem. I know that, and so as they're coming up the East River,
the boats
in the bridges where we basically have a moratorium on the music, right? So we have a restriction.
Right. Your boats typically follow, but we're having a problem with other boats. And I know there's a community member in this meeting who registered a complaint about those other boats, and that's been going on for a while.
Forever, but I'm happy to pass it on to them, and they can do something in between, the same area where we operate, where we ask if they might tone it down.
Thank you. Those are all my questions and comments, and we can obviously discuss more. Last thing is that vessel operations that we used to get monthly or weekly. As of August, they just stopped. Maybe as of July, it just stopped. So I don't get any more updates about what boats are in there.
Are you not getting schedule?
No.
I'll get you back on the list. Mike Morales is out. He leaves.
Okay.
So the new person probably just doesn't have you on the list. I'll make sure that happens.
All right, thank you. Committee members. No questions. I see a board member, Lee Berman.
Hi, thank you, Trevor, and thank you for bringing that up. And I appreciate hearing about the moratorium that your operators appear to be abiding by. As just to add, it seems that boats leaving East 23rd Street are certainly not abiding by that, and we are frequently bombarded with boats idling or passing by between the Williamsburg and Manhattan Bridge, specifically off of Corlears Hook Park area, who go all night. So if you're able to contact any of those operators, the community would certainly appreciate it. And that.
Sure. So I'll pass that on. I'll pass it.
Thank you.
I'll do that.
Thank you. Any more questions? Well, thank you for that presentation, and we appreciate now being in contact about the other items we discussed. But thank you for your time. All right, thanks.
Nice talking to all of you.
All right, folks.
Motion to adjourn.
We're going to take attendance first. So we did pretty good tonight.
Yes, we did.
So we're going to have a motion to adjourn. I'll second it. Michael, go ahead, raise that motion.
I second it.
Second it. All in favor? We need to take attendance, so.
Yeah.
Let's do this before 8, Ryan. Roll call, roll call, roll call.
Roll call.
Roy Velez. Josephine Velez.
Yay.
Daniel Tano.
Yes.
But really, then it just ends up.
Robin Chattel.
Yes.
Michael Marino.
Yes, please.
Valentino Jones.
Yes.
Carlin Shan.
Yes.
Yaron Altman.
Yes. Thank you.
David Adams.
Yes.
Brian Gillum, yes. Kay Webster.
Yes.
Trevor Holland.
Yes.
All done.
Keep in mind, folks, before we say goodbye, that more than likely we will also be remote next month, but that may change. But please check the website for information.
What did you say? What did you say,
More than likely, we will be remote next month.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah.
But there's a possibility that we may go in person. I don't think so, but please check the website for that information.
Why would we go in person?
Also to my Jewish friends, Happy New Year to you all.
Hoshana Tova.
Thank you.
Good night, everybody.
Meeting because.
Right.
Good night, everyone.